arm. And so I felt that today's shiur would be dedicated to our thinking about Israel, and it's called the Iran-Israel War, turning learning into prayer, turning learning to prayer. And one can't help but notice the tremendous difference in war tactics, that when one thinks about what Iran is doing, it's tragic enough that 5% of their rockets have gone to have evaded our anti-air air missiles, but 5%, something like that, have gotten through, and tens of our people have been killed, Jews and Arabs. Quite something, quite tragic. But one has to calculate not only the rockets that got through, but the rockets that were intended to get through. And there must have been several hundred of them, 400 or 500 from what I've read. And had they all gotten through, because that was the intention, the attempt is to hit civilian large apartment buildings, it would have been a human catastrophe. Whereas Israel, although Israel has complete reign of the skies, it would never consider taking out apartment buildings in Tehran where there are innocent civilians. And that points to me to such a difference between the ethics of both armies. And to give you a sense that we all know about it, but sometimes when you see it on video, we can get a sense of what Israelis are going through. So this will tell you nothing new, but it is a recording done by our daughter-in-law, Dove's wife, Shandy, who is the deputy bureau chief for the Middle East covering of the Wall Street Journal. And she also is the bureau chief covering Israel. She had the lead article on the front page of yesterday's Wall Street Journal. So she did this video recording about her family going down 6 flights into the Mamad. And I found it very edifying. And so before we begin with some formal Torah, let's listen to this video, which in of itself is a form of Torah learning.
Report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
We are now at a critical crossroads over whether this war is going to escalate and bring the United States into a war in the Middle East that could spread throughout the region. The big question now is, what will Iran do? Will they decide to expand this war by hitting U.S. assets in the region as they have threatened to do? Or will they back down, come to the table, and seek a diplomatic solution? The United States sent B-2 bombers to the Middle East to drop what's called massive ordnance penetrators. These are enormous bombs that are capable of destroying underground facilities. They dropped these bunker busters on a nuclear facility called Fordo, which is perhaps one of the most important in Iran because it's built into a mountain and it's very deep underground. Nobody can destroy this except the Americans. The United States also launched Tomahawk.
Josh, this actually was the wrong video. This is Shandy on a second video. I don't know if you can find through your contacts, the Wall Street Journal, there was another video which was really touched the heart about the family going down.
It was on the Buy It website. That's where I saw it last week.
Okay. Ravadi, if you can give me a minute, I'll find it and I'll let you know when I find it.
It's no more, because I know we all have so much on our mind, and then I want to open up and hear what what everyone thinks. But I do want to begin with a paragraph from this book called Holistic Prayer. It was published about 10 years ago. Now, the theme of the book is that there's a difference between prayer and the Hebrew translation tefillah. Prayer, most people associate with somebody holding a prayer book, standing perhaps in their homes or in a synagogue or in a church or in a mosque. And they're praying, they're offering prayer. But the truth of the matter is, tefillah is different. Tefillah is much, much more holistic. In fact, there is a teaching that the phrase "Va'ani tefillah" and "I am tefillah" speaks to the idea that it's not only prayer which has its place, but "Va'ani tefillah," a person can turn into prayer. Prayer is much more full. It has a holiness, H-O-L-Y, and it has a wholeness, W-H-O-L-E. There are people who, when they teach Torah, you can almost feel the spirituality is so deep that it's a form of learning. It's very, very different than other disciplines. I think it's based on whether one looks at the holy text of learning, Torah or the Talmud, does one see it as a sacred text? So speaking very personally, as one who, with all the challenges that you have heard through the years that I have in understanding text and challenging text, it's still a sacred text. And while I think that chemistry and math and English, it's so important and so, I guess, holy, and I guess in its own way it could be sacred. In the Torah, it's built in. And in writing Holistic Prayer, I was trying to think of, is there any person I have heard teaching Torah and the Torah is a prayer? And this is what I wrote. One of the great Torah scholars of our time who lives this idea, the idea that learning could be prayer, is Dr. Aviva Zurenberg. I hope you've heard of her. She's written beautiful commentary books on Genesis, Breshit, Shemot, and Vayikra. I think she's working on Bamidbar. Maybe it's out already. And then we write, listening to her Torah is not only an intellectual exercise, but a religious experience. Her Torah is holistic. It is a form of tefillah, a song that reveals the inner soul. As the psalmist declares, Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, sing to the Lord a new song. Sometimes I felt that when I listened to Rabbi Soloveitchik, and I once asked him about that. Students asked him, and he said that when he teaches and is studying the commentaries like Rashi, who we've mentioned, Nachmanides and others, he described it as sitting at his desk and he's studying a page of Talmud, and suddenly the door opens and Rashi walks in and sits down. And he has a conversation with Rashi, and Rashi says, this is the interpretation. Suddenly the door opens and Nachmanides walks in. And they're talking with each other and disagreeing with each other and agreeing with each other. And then who walks in hundreds of years later? Rabbi Soloveitchik said, my grandfather and my father. I don't think he said his mother, although his mother had a great influence on him. And he was the one, by the way, who encouraged the women's Bet Midrash that I had the honor to teach at Yeshiva University for Women 40 years ago. But when you heard him teach, you got a sense of that. And I remember he would give these big classes between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Thousands would come. It was like a song. It was a dance. It was a prayer. It's a fascinating concept that learning can be a prayer. And I feel a touch of that when I hear Rabbi Stevens speak. Stevens, his language is so poetic, is combined with his thoughts, so spiritual. For me, it reminds me a little bit of, especially the talks that Rabbi Exel, all of them are great, but the ones he gives between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, if you've not heard it, you've got to come, or before Pesach, it's called Shabbat Tshuva and Shabbat Hagadol. I've told Reb Stephen, I don't want to embarrass him, but it reminds me of the way of Rabbi Soloveitchik's talk. And so the thesis is that learning can be prayer, a form of prayer. So when I listen to, let's say, Lance, who's, as we all know, he's brilliant. But I hear Lance, I hear you speak not only from the head, I try to hear it from the heart, from the lathe. And that's what I feel when Estelle challenges us, challenges me. To me, it's all a form of, it could be at its height, a form of prayer for everybody, for Ellen, for everybody. Tova, I didn't see Tova being on today. That's what it is. And so what I'd like to do today, I'd like to touch on something very different than I had prepared. I had prepared something from the weekly portion from Torat Ahavah. But with the war going on, I do, a couple of hours of learning a day in the time that I have. I learn a page of Talmud a day, and Talmud is very intellectual. But I'm telling you, these days, every word of the Talmud, I feel it as a prayer, and a prayer which is connected to what is unfolding in Israel. And I'd like to give you 2 examples of such moments when I felt it in recent days. But before doing so, if Josh has found that video, maybe we can all take a look at it as a preamble.
Yes, I've found it.
Thank you, Josh.
In central Tel Aviv with my family, with my husband and 3 kids. We're in a neighborhood that is about 15 minutes from the Kiryat, which is Israel's version of the Pentagon. So we are right in the line of fire. We have had to go downstairs multiple times every single night to our building's underground bomb shelter. We're about 6 flights up. So me, my kids, my husband, we all run down as the Iranian ballistic missiles are headed really right towards us. I'm going to show you the way down to the shelter so you can get a sense of what it's like for some of us in Tel Aviv. I have 3 children, age 7, 6, and 3, and so it can be very hard to walk down with all the kids. I usually hold my 3-year-old and my husband tries to take the boys. We go down these kind of narrow steps. There are usually lots of other people, our neighbors, that come and walk down the steps with us, so there can be a little bit of a traffic jam here, which can increase the anxiety when we're trying to get down in a minute and a half. Here we are now entering the stairs to go all the way down to the bomb shelter. The bomb shelter is pretty dirty. Cockroaches all over the place. So we don't sleep down here all the time, but because we will stay down for an hour at a time, we have our sleeping bags and some of my kids' blankets from upstairs so they would feel kind of familiar. We brought bean bags and we brought some toys And the idea is to try to make kids feel just as comfortable as possible. One of the things that we've learned is to make sure we have lots of videos available. We don't want them kind of just like waiting and hearing the sounds of these loud booms, which can be really traumatic for them. Here we store some water bottles, some snacks, first aid kit, and I also have some toilet paper in there because the bathroom doesn't have any toilet paper. We've got a hole in the ground to use as a toilet. So these are quite basic. We don't have any Wi-Fi here in the shelter. It's a real dead zone, which is kind of not a great situation for figuring out what's going on outside. So sometimes what some people will do, I've done this before, is if you climb up this ladder, you can kind of stick your phone up into that shaft and sometimes you can get cell service. But the better thing that we've been doing is my husband and I bought this like old-fashioned transistor radio. We put the antenna like up here, and either my husband or one of my neighbors, they'll try to tune it so we can catch what the radio is telling us. And the radio will usually give us updates on like whether some of the missiles have actually fallen. We can kind of tell what's fallen based on how loud the sound is. So we've kind of become good at telling when a boom is the Iron Dome blowing up a missile in the sky, and when a boom is a fall. And when it's a fall, it's just a much deeper crash, obviously. And sort of gets into your bones. You can really feel it, and that's obviously much scarier for the kids. So my husband or one of our neighbors will play with the transistor radio until we get the all clear that it's safe to leave. And then we take the trip back upstairs. It's also very hot. There's no fresh air, so it's incredibly uncomfortable and hard to breathe. So we really avoid being down there for too long, or as long as we can.
Yes, and actually Dove and Cheney live in a very wonderful section of Tel Aviv near what's called Kikar Hamdina, and their apartment is beautiful, but the stairwells and the mamad the shelter is not in their apartment. And actually they were fortunate. The Wall Street Journal is very, very concerned about their safety, and so they've moved them to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim apparently is being hit less, maybe because the Iranians are afraid their aim is not perfect. They can take out the Temple Mount. You never know. I know that there were missiles being shot towards the Temple Mount about a year ago when the Iranians started the firing, and it was quite ironic that the Israeli air defense was taking down Iranian missiles that were misfired and were heading towards the center of Jerusalem. That's the matzav, that's the situation for millions of people in Israel. It's not an easy situation at all. But what I'd like to do now is 2 points before a final word, 2 Torah thoughts. Now let me show you. This is the Talmud, and I study a page of Talmud a day. I'll show you what it looks like. Many of you have seen the Talmud. It's a program to finish the Talmud. It takes almost 8 years. I've never finished the Talmud, but I'm 5 years in, and I hope if God gives me the years, I'll be able to finish it. And you could see it's underlined, different colors. One color, the red, is the earlier rabbis, what's called the Tanaim. The blue is the Amoraim, who they are the generations later. And where there is no underline, that's the editors of the Gemara in the 6th century. 2 rabbis, Ravina and Ravashi, and maybe it's even later. And on the right side, I offer a bit of a summary. And on the left side, I write what's called a Machshevet Hadaf. That is, on every page, I try as best as I can to glean, separate from all the legal back and forth, is there any thought here that spiritually touched my soul, that touched my heart. Now, I use my, and I don't like using first person. I use it to encourage everyone, for you to read the page of Talmud. Different lines speak to different people, dependent upon who we are. That's what good writing is about. Sometimes I come up with ideas and I say, is this what the rabbi meant? I don't know if he meant it when it was written, but that's what I'm gleaning from it. And good writing, I think, is writing where the author may not even be aware of the depth of the writing that could be interpreted in ways that he never thought of, or she never thought of, or never intended. It gets complicated if it's not what he or she intended, is what we're deriving from the text. Is it real? Does it have standing? Let me give you, as I said before, two examples. The first comes from Daf Lamed Vav of Shavuot. We just finished the tractate of Shavuot, and it deals with oath-taking. Now, taking oaths are a very, very serious matter in the Talmud. The Torah says, Lo tisa et Shem Hashem Elokecha lashab. It's the third of the 10 commandments, better translated, the 10 declarations, the Aseret HaDibrot. We're not to take God's name in vain. We all know that when people appear before Congress, when they're under oath, that could be a violation of law. If one lies, that could put you in jail. Very different than in our normal discourse. Then maybe one would exaggerate, or one wouldn't tell the full truth. I wish it wasn't that way. And here I'm talking to myself, letting you listen. We have to be as careful with our words when we're not under oath as when we are under oath. Sometimes people think there's a division. Maybe the goal of the oath-taking in God's name is that should spill over into our mundane lives. And so in this text, there is a discussion of what is called, and it's a very legal, and I won't bother you with this, just touching on it, it's called Shvuat HaPikadon. Shvuat. Shvuat means the oath. The oath. Shvuat is an oath. Shvuat. HaPikadon literally means, it deals with, let's say, I deposit with you, imagine each of you, I give you something which you have agreed to watch. You become, the English translation of Pikadon is, it's a deposit, and you become what's called in legalese, you become the custodian, or the fancier term is the bailey. So I give you something and I ask you to watch it. And so after a couple of weeks, I come to you and I say, I would like to get my deposit back. Thank you for watching it. And let's say the person I deposited with then says, you never gave it to me, or you gave it to me and I've already returned it. So there's a legal issue. What happens? I'm claiming the deposit. You took responsibility to watch it, and there are differences if you watched it gratis or you watched it for pay, and we're clashing. What happens? In that case, in that case, the bailey, the one who's doing the watching, takes an oath supporting his position, and then doesn't pay. So when one thinks about it, it's a very legalese type of concept. Shvuat HaPikadon. That is, the bailey takes an oath because he's saying he never got the deposit, or he returned the deposit. In order for him not to be liable, he has to take an oath. And if, when he takes an oath, the oath is found to be false, of course, there are going to be legal consequences. Now, in learning this, I just want to give you a sense of what I was feeling. And again, excuse me for using I, first person, but I'm doing it not to impress, but to make a point. And I don't even know if this is right, but I think what is right is that one has a right for one's mind and heart to float. And right about then, our Gavi, the 6 of Ilana's kids, they've all been in the army or serving the country. So when he finished his training, as you all know, the soldiers appear at the Kotel. And I've been there many times, not for Gavi, but I was there many times for our other grandchildren. And they come in, not only our grandchild's platoon of 30 people, but other platoons. There could be as many as 600-700 at the Kotel. And for each platoon, you could hear how the commander, the Mefakedet, is shouting out orders. They often say the word check, check, amodon, that's check, check, no, tension, at ease, move forward, move backwards. He's shouting out orders. And then at a particular point, each soldier receives not an M16 these days. Gabi says it's called an M4. I know nothing about it. This big rifle. And they get that. And along with that, they also receive the Tanakh, the Bible and the prophets and the Hagiographa all in one volume. Sort of a statement that the way we fight with the gun must be informed by the sacredness and the holiness of Torah. It has to be a purity of arms, not a simple challenge to always fulfill. And there have been aberrations, but on the whole, Israel's army, as you've heard me say, I think is the most moral army on the face of the earth. And then it hit me, wait a minute, I'm studying about Shvuat HaPikadon. Again, Shvuah is the oath. Pikadon is the deposit. And I'm hearing the commanders shouting out orders. And the Hebrew word for order is pikudah. That's the order. Pikudah, or the plural, pikudot, shouting out orders. At a certain point, maybe Josh can embellish upon this, the soldier stands, and at a certain point in the ceremony, the soldiers together, individually, they scream out, Ani nishba, I affirm, I take an oath, with all the complications. Can you take an oath today? What is it, an affirmation, and so on? But they scream out, Ani nishba, I affirm my allegiance to do whatever I can to protect the state of Israel, the citizens of Israel, the people of Israel. Ani nishba. And suddenly this Shvuat HaPikadon, this legal term, took on for me a prayer. Shvuat HaPikadon. It took me to that site where the Shvuah was not an oath dealing with Pikadon, a deposit, but it was the Shvuah, the Ani Nishba, the soldiers who were taking the oath, who were affirming and committing themselves and doing so as they were listening to the Pekudot, Shvuat HaPikadon of the commander. And I'm thinking further, wait a minute. In the end, who are our soldiers? In a certain sense, our soldiers are our deposits. We put them out there as a deposit. And our deepest prayer is that our soldiers, who are the most valuable of deposits, if you will, it's like a parent who is saying, my child, you can go, and at great risk, we're depositing you in the army. You're defending and doing what you're doing. What's our deepest prayer? That the deposit be returned whole, that the deposit be returned with life, with health, to continue life and marry and children, and for those who are already married, that they be well. And so this is what I wrote. It was on Daf Lamed Vav 36. And I've been doing this for a while. I hope one day maybe to publish it. Josh, if it's at all possible to make the words a little louder, a little larger. The news that IDF, Josh, are you able to point to it? I don't know if there's a way to point to it. Not sure.
Do you see my cursor?
Yes, a cursor. Yes, I do. The news that IDF soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice in battle last week. I wrote this before the Iran war. And right before the war, there were 8 soldiers in a day or two who lost their lives. And so this is the news that IDF soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice in battle last week makes it almost impossible to focus on the daily Daf Yomi, to focus on the page of Gemara Talmud. For me, every word of the learning turned into a prayer that there be no more losses. For example, the first words of the 5th chapter, Shvuat HaPikadon, dealing with an oath wherein one denies he has taken a deposit or a loan or a stolen item, stirred within me tefillot, prayers for our grandson Gabi, who has just completed 13 months of arduous training in the Nitcharuv unit of Kfir. With Gavri entering the war zone in a few days, I didn't even want to write it was Gaza. The Shvuah of the Shvuat HaPikadon recalled how he and his platoon affirmed their commitment to Israel, calling out as they formally enlisted at the Kotel, Ani Nishba, I take the oath. The Pikadon was the Pikudah, the order of the commanders during the enlistment ceremony and moving forward that the soldiers followed meticulously. I thought, too, of the times in the Torah portion we read these weeks. I'm referring to the portions of Bamidbar and Nasa, we just read them, where the root pakat, pikadon, is used to denote a census, where God commands us, pakod tifkod, you are to count. Pakad is understood to count. And Nachmanides asks, why were we counted then? And he responds, because at that moment we were supposed to enter Israel. This was before the sin of the spies. And the soldiers had to be counted, taking account, says Nachmanides, of how many soldiers were then available as the Israelites prepared to enter the Holy Land. And I offered the prayer that God's promise to remember and redeem the Jewish people. That's another usage of the word pakod, pakadati, again from pakad, be fulfilled. And every soldier who, if you will, is a pikadon, a deposit to be returned holy. WHOLLY. Go out and come back in peace. Bishleimut, in a holy way. V'chein yihi ratzon. So may it be for Gabi and all IDF soldiers. Here I was adding that the word Hokad is a word for counting. And we count when soldiers go out. But our prayer is, and here Pakod again is used, where the Torah says, God remembers Sarah. That's the first usage in the Torah. Vashem Pakad et Sarah Kasheama, and she becomes pregnant. That God remembers, and he realizes and comes through with his promise. And all the soldiers who go out come back. My father would tell the story that I believe is an Agnon story. A king watches his returning victorious army and is so ecstatic. Not so, he writes, the King of Kings, the ruler of rulers, when watching the soldiers return. He's happy they've been victorious, but he's crying because not every soldier who went out is coming back. That's an example of Shvuat HaPikadon. That's what I'm feeling these days. It's the feeling of Rav Nachman of Bratslav, who used to say, Kol makom shani holech, everywhere where I am going, ani holech le'eretz Yisrael. That's the way I try to rabbinate at the synagogue. I've always said that there are two kinds of synagogue in the diaspora. There is one that sits in the diaspora, and there is another that is yearning for Israel. It is Doresh Tzion. It is reaching for Zion. It understands that the ultimate place, and I never made it to live there, but the ultimate place is Israel itself. Just another example. On the last daf of Shavuot, there is a discussion of what is called the four Shomrim. The four Shomrim, there are four types of guardians. And actually, the fancy term is Bailey, as I said to you before. It's Bailey, it's the second. It's Bailey, it's the custodian. But then it hit me. There are four types. There is the Bailey who watches the deposit without receiving any pay. We've mentioned that. It's the Bailey, the Shomer Sacha, who watches it for pay. There's a Shoel, one who buries. There's a Socher, one who rents. And the Talmud asks this question, well, are the four Baileys really three? Because the renter sounds similar to the Bailey who's being, the renter is the one who could use it. He's renting the item, or she's renting the item. The Bailey is the one who can't use it, but he's being paid for watching the item. So the Talmud wants to know, are those two Baileys really one? And therefore there are not four Baileys, but there's three. And so in 39, we'll cut right to the chase. This is now the last word. It's the last word of this Talmudic portion. I write, the final chapter of Shavuot deals with oaths taken by Shomrim to exempt. The final chapter of Shavuot deals with oaths taken by Shomrim to exempt themselves from liability. While the term Shomrim in legal context is defined as baileys or custodians who watch the object of the other, it can literally mean a guardian. That's what Shomer means. Forget the fancy terminology, bailey or custodian. It means a guardian. And so when our daf wondered whether there are 3 or 4 categories of Shomrim, my neshama, my soul, was in Israel, where today there are far more categories of guardians risking their lives defending the Jewish state. Of course, the ultimate guardian is God himself, without whom we would have no success. Learning about the Shomer's oath, I'm so sorry. Learning about the guardian's oath, I thought Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Badichev's style. This rabbi used to always have these respectful but very challenging conversations with God, to respectfully and lovingly ask God, have you been true to your promise to be the guardian of Israel? O Lord, during these difficult days, we implore you, Anah, 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 please, 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 do not forsake us, do not forget us. Help us rise up as you promised to be the ultimate of Shomrim, the Shomer Yisrael. And then the tractate name was Hadran, 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 which means over and over and over we pray. So may it be. Lu Yehi. I'll be just 2 more minutes. And that is, in yesterday's or 2 days ago, the Daf had a beautiful teaching. And the teaching was, it was on Daf Daf Hey. The teaching is Lo Koi Inish Adate Derabe Ad Arba'in Shnin. Suddenly the Talmud says, we cannot understand the teaching of our teacher, of our rabbi, to fully understand it until after 40 years. And though this is what I wrote. Again, I'm so sorry to bother you with my throat. This is what I wrote. Who knows? Who understands? 1st October 7th, losses, horrific losses, soldiers, hostages, evacuees. And now striking Iran. For the first time in history, America fighting alongside Israel. Sometimes, says our page of Gemara, it takes 40 years to understand the opinion of a teacher. If the teacher is uppercase, don't spell it small t, but big T. If the teacher is uppercase, it refers to God, the ultimate teacher, reminding us that the ways of the Lord may be incomprehensible. Only decades later may matters be fully understood, fully clear. Perhaps this was God's response to Moses' request. Remember when Moses says to God, show me your ways, show me your face. And God replies, I cannot be seen. And be seen means I cannot be understood from the front, which we're interpreting. I cannot be understood as the moment unfolds, only from the back. Only in hindsight may one comprehend my ways. I know when you turn on all of these political pundits, everybody is telling you exactly what it means, from one end to the other end. And I must say, I think this is historic. As one who has written very often about the American abandonment of Israel, going back to the beginning of my rabbinate, I've never seen America do something fighting alongside of Israel. And frankly, although I'm not a big fan of Trump, one for me has to be Makir Tov and offer Thanksgiving. This was quite extraordinary on his part. Couldn't have done it without Israel doing what it did, softening up those skies. But I think we have to stay humble and while try to assess, we're living now, what has unfolded at the same time. I think we're only going to understand it, what God had in mind, And as much as we need God, believe me, God needs us a lot. It's a partnership. It's only years from now that we're going to fully comprehend what had unfolded when God says, after me, sort of like I was thinking, when God says, you can't see me from the front, but you can see me from the back, just after me. I'm not sure it has anything to do with what I just said, but I'm thinking about all those commanders. They go out in the front and they scream out to their soldiers, Acharai, after me. It's sort of like a glimpse of that moment when God says, Acharai, can't see me from the front, but from the back, you can see me. And so that's the idea of learning, turning into prayer. I wish I would have found it. I would have played now the song, that Hebrew song, that Hebrew prayer of Ribono Shel Olam, O Master of the Universe, oh, help us to victory, that our soldiers be healed, that those who are not yet buried be buried, that those in mourning somehow be comforted, that the hostages be freed, the evacuees come home, that our country be united, from distance coming close, from bitterness to friendship. So may it be, so may it be. I want to stop here and get your feeling about this approach to learning, taking learning, which is so head-centered, and trying to give it a flavor of the heart and the soul. I'd love to hear a pushback or agreement from you, but a pushback is fine, whether I'm taking it too far. Let's open this up. And Josh, if you can call on everyone. I see Estelle.
Yes.
Clearly, it's a parable to what Rambam done. Yeah.
Estelle, you're still muted.
So you could have had something. Shmuel told him, "No, you're wrong. He needs this. He needs Atam, they're no bullet. Das was a pretty. Yeah. Mishum hashta, and because of you can't have what is that? Yeah. You can't own it because of Chashad. Like that. Yeah.
As Estelle struggles to get on, Lance, I'd love to hear what you think about this approach, because you're my professor.
I just got word that Trump said to Netanyahu, don't, and Netanyahu didn't. In other words, Netanyahu pulled back the planes that he was going to strike Iran. Now, I've not been able to confirm that with any other news or organization, so I don't know if it's true. Certainly, Trump did curse Israel and Iran, but in Israel, and the whole thing doesn't add up to me at all. I don't understand how Trump just went against every possible person around him, right, left, center, and dropped the monster bombs, the bad boys, totally destroying supposedly the Iranian nuclear program. Now, my question to you, Rav Avi, is this: can Russia and China provide a nuclear weapon or weapons to Iran? If so, everything that's been done against Iran to get rid of Iran's program is worthless. Right?
Rather, Lance, first, I appreciate the question, and what do I know? Who knows? Maybe, but the goal here of this class was just a humble spiritual attempt, not to get into the politics, to the give and take, although your question, I think we have every right to ask and we can try to answer. But I guess I'm trying to give a glimpse of a lover of Zion, how my life has been overtaken and totally consumed by what's unfolding. You know, Josh, at Chag HaSmicha, when Rabbi Berman announced that, that Israel had struck Iran, this goes back 10 days, I wanted to stay for the dancing, and it probably shows limitation. I just couldn't. You know, sometimes you can get so absorbed in something that's what it is. So that was really the humble goal here, to see whether that resonates with you, whether, yeah. Ruby, what do you think?
I'm not able to put anything into words. I'm just listening.
Right.
I think I've unmuted. Am I unmuted?
You
Yes.
are.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, what may I speak? May I speak?
Of course.
Oh, what I find very difficult with everything that we learn and we see and we do, why is it instinctive that every other person tends to put Israel in the wrong no matter what we do? Nobody sees the right part. Nobody sees the humility and the humanity. Only see that Israel is wrong. How does that come about? That's what I'm questioning.
Anybody have an answer? Josh, do you have an answer? Any thoughts?
I think, more and more, I think it's hard not to see that, the old evils of the past are returning. Some of these old beliefs, and it's really difficult to see. It's really difficult to comprehend.
But this is a new generation, and it's the new generation that's doing this. It's not, people from the past. This is my question. I find it very difficult.
Right. Well, I've been arguing for a while, Estelle, that in a certain way we were protected by the Holocaust. It just wasn't the thing to do, the polite thing to do, to be so anti-Semitic. And now the Holocaust is a footnote in history, and the anti-Semites are coming out of the woodwork. Unfortunately.
But even now, when we were fighting and not hitting people, it has nothing to do with the Holocaust. I mean, nobody even notices the fact that all the good things that Israel is avoiding, hitting people and fighting a war that is as humane as it can be. Nobody even sees that. What is that? It has nothing to do with the Holocaust. It's a new generation that's coming up.
Right. And by the way,
I find everything you say is questioning.
And it's also, Israel is doing not only its work, it's doing the work of the West. It's doing the work of America. It's doing the work of the free world.
Well.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
Ahavah, Sarit raised her hand.
Yeah, please.
I'm going back to your other question. I appreciate Estelle's comments, and that's a whole session. It's more than a session. It's probably a whole course to discuss that. So I'm going back to your original question, which was the idea of learning with the heart as well as the intellect. So here's just like a little analogy that came to my mind. I think when we learn something strictly with the intellect and we memorize it, whatever, and it's not with the heart, I think the difference is one is a dry sponge and the other is a wet sponge. And the absorption happens with the wet sponge. When the learning makes your brain a wet sponge, you absorb it better. When it's a dry sponge, you learn it for now, you may forget it, but because it never quite absorbs your entire being, it just remains on the surface. So that's just an image that came to my mind.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Right. And it's often the case that when one offers this kind of Torah, that one assumes that it's a diminishing of the depth of Torah. And I actually think it's the reverse. I think it adds to the power of Torah, because the study of Torah, I keep using the word, is holistic. But one thing remains certain for everyone: we are living, these are historical times that we've been, I'm so sorry my father is not here to see this. These are, again, this is the first time that America has actually fought with Israel. First time ever, never happened before. It's quite something. And when one thinks about, I mean, it's at a great price and with humility, but something is happening in the Middle East that Hezbollah is silent, Hamas is, Houthis. Quite something. Okay. I've never seen you so quiet, everyone. It's either I put you to sleep or it made no sense.
No, it gives us a lot to think
Lots of
about.
things to think about.
Is all this learning, I just am asking, is all this learning worth it? Maybe we're learning the wrong thing. Maybe we should learn how to get along with people rather than studying only Torah. Torah doesn't, I mean, I know it's sacrilegious, but really, we should learn how to get along with people. Maybe we'll have more people on our side. But to concentrate on studying Torah is all well and good. But enough is enough. I'm sorry. I know I sound sacrilegious, but it.
No, you don't. Not at all. Not. I'm sorry, Estelle. You sound very religious to me.
I agree.
Of Avi, Arnie raised their hand.
Thank you, my Arnie.
So, Avi, first of all, I thought your lesson was brilliant, but I just wanted to add something, like when you said learning Torah is prayer. To me, like everything that a person does that brings them closer to God is a form of prayer. And it could be Torah, or people could learn Torah without feeling that connection. Something comes from inside a person that connects with the lesson or with what they're doing. I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, at Eli Kranzler's Slichot concert, he sang a song by a woman named Alison Krauss, A Living Prayer. And it just says a lot, I guess, of what I'm feeling. It's to the Christian God, but even so.
Beautiful. There is a teaching that there's a sentence, Vani tfilati lecha, which is translated, and my prayer is to you, O God. And in Hasidic literature, it's translated Vani tfilah. There are people who become tfilah. Everything that they do, every act that they do becomes a form of prayer. Actually, in holistic prayer, I mentioned that as well. Let me see if I can find the text.
Ani, there is no Christian God. I
Well,
thought there was one God.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, Avi, it may be something what the guitarist said to you that is really
I try to write there that the person who most reminds me of an action being prayer is my father-in-law. And he started a program where he would send hundreds of envelopes to people every month who had committed themselves to sending $10 to poor people in Israel. So his house was full of boxes of those envelopes. He used to put in the addressed envelope into a larger envelope and then send it to the donor every month. Probably sent out every month 500 envelopes.
Boy.
And in my mind, that was the prayer. When you just what you were saying, Arnie. Oh, here it is. I found it. The individual who reflected the teaching, this teaching, was my father-in-law, Zalman Aryeh Hilsenrad. I have memories of the way my father-in-law prayed, and I go on, and then I write, lowering his head, he'd softly say every word. But for me, what made him a paragon of prayer was not only the words he offered, but the way he lived. His good deeds, his kindness became his very being. For the last 25 years of his life, he organized a charity program wherein almost 1,000 American adopted poor Israeli families, every month he'd send the Americans an envelope with an Israeli family's address, reminding them of their responsibility to send a check. His bedroom became his office, a reservoir of boxes of envelopes that he and his wife, Ida, would laboriously address by hand. He was tefillah. He was holistic prayer. We'll stop at that. I have invited Josh only if he wishes to give one of the next two sessions. We'll see if Josh has the time to prepare, but any time. Josh, you got the last word. Any thoughts on all this?
First, Carol's had her hand raised for a while. If she could speak quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of things. To Estelle's statement that the Torah doesn't teach us how to live together. I think the Torah is imbued with lots of principles of living together.
Maybe we don't follow.
And we're just not following them enough. And I seem to remember that if you can't get to a minyan and if you're observing a yortzeit, that you can substitute Torah learning for prayer. Oh, so you left your speaker open. My husband was in the other room. Now he's here, but I can hear me speaking. That's why the echo. So that would go along with what you're saying, that studying Talmud is a form of prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, you have the last word.
I just want to say how thankful I am to be learning at Chove at YCT, where I think Rav Avi, you've instilled kind of this idea that learning is prayer. And I think what Rabbi Linzer and all the other rabbis at the yeshiva really show that, through learning, we're able to find God. And through learning, we're also able to find those connections to other people and really open up our hearts to the entire world. And I really think I'm really lucky to be part of a place that instills that so deeply.
Thank you, Josh. And I've heard Josh speak, and I was just like bowled over. So let it be many, many more times. And anytime I'm in the presence of an Israeli soldier, I'm always humbled, Josh. You know what I always do? If I pass an Israeli soldier, Ruby, what do I do? They don't know me. I woke up to them. I said, do me a favor. Give me a blessing. And I really mean that. It's Ruby, you've got grandchildren in the army, don't you? Pause. Ruby,
What about my grandchildren?
Aren't they in the army?
Yeah, well, two of them, one had served, and now he had some soldier injury, so he's not called back again. And the other had served, but now he's working actually for the Israeli government in procurement of all the supplies. So they're not directly fighting, but they're there.
Yeah. And it's also, I want to underscore, it's not just fighting. Any way to serve is a holy thing, as long as one gives and gives. And
the whole country is giving.
Yeah,
The whole country. When we were just there, every place
it's
you
something.
looked.
Yeah, it's a remarkable country. They're all serving. They may not be in green uniforms, but everybody is serving in their own way.
Right.
And I love those interviews when they're in front of a house that Iran hit, and they talk. Yeah, thank God, my wife, my husband is okay, my children's okay, and of course, Dreidel is okay. He's holding in his hand. Dreidel is a dog. It's like, God.
Well, have you been to the National Library? I was just there, and there are about 300 chairs as you go into the library, and on the back of each chair in full size are pictures of each of the Holocaust of the hostages. And I mean, the country is doing everything. I don't know, there isn't one person who isn't involved. So, but it's for our own people. That's the whole point. Maybe they do for other people, but the other people don't realize that's what's wrong. We don't tell them all the things we do for other people. Maybe that's what we need. I don't know. I'm just sort of getting very, very discouraged.
Thank you. It looks like Rav Avi something must have happened, a technical difficulty. He's not on the Zoom. I think we'll give him another minute till 11:35. And if not, I want to thank everyone for joining us for the shir this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Estelle,
Yeah.
it's like we're the world's whipping boy. We're the first to be criticized always, and for millennia. So this is nothing new.
It's nothing new, but
it just goes underground for a while, and unfortunately now it's above ground.
Yeah.
So we always have to be vigilant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
We play such a prominent role in the world to keep ourselves safe.
I don't know if
we don't speak up for ourselves, who will?
Well, that's true, but I don't know. Are prayers doing it? I don't know if prayers can help.
We're doing more than prayer.
We're doing more.
We're doing a lot more than prayer now.
Obviously, but Avi was talking about prayers now, and all the things that Talmud is
part of it.
Yeah.
I think prayer could help people as individuals. So if it helps you as an individual, and then you go out there and talk to people and do the other work that needs to be done, it's not exclusive of each other. If it helps you live, if it helps one cope, then you do it. If it doesn't, okay, that's
going.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Well, I'll think about that. Yeah.
Welcome back. I was worried about you. I even contacted Shuli to see if you were okay.
Oh no, yeah, we were there.
I know. I was planning to go. My ticket got canceled. Yeah.
Well, my kids had me sleeping in the safe room in the mamad, but then when 2 o'clock, when the air raid sound, then the rest of my family came in. So what's the point of my sleeping there if everybody joined me at 2 o'clock in the morning? It was very crazy.
Now you can write about that experience.
No, it's nothing to write about. You just go through it. No, my granddaughter is a doctor, and she's constantly going to the hospitals every day doing her thing, as everybody else is in the country. Everybody.
I'm sorry, my phone went dead, so I'm back.
Just as well. We said things you didn't have to hear.
Right.
We see your fingers.
Everybody stay safe and be
Thank
careful in this hot weather.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a,
Okay, love you all.
thank you. Love you.
Love you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Au revoir.